Hi, I'm Whack.
Hey, and I'm Pat. Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Daily Orbit, the weekly orbit. This week ending Friday, February 7th. It was a little icy yesterday in Whackland, so we had to delay it one day. You had Junior home with you from school,
Two
uh,
juniors.
two
Yeah,
juniors. Yeah, so
yeah,
you were pretty busy. How was
yeah.
your week been besides the ice storm?
Yeah, it's like trying to get on with work and trying to spend time with family and loved ones and just looking at the everything is just consumed by the political situation right now. Like, every day there's new news of what the new administration is doing and how that's impacting people, and like it's just that seems to be sucking out all the oxygen of every conversation. Like that's the only thing people are talking about. So
Mm.
it's nice to just kind of in some ways kind of make your world a little bit smaller and just like focus on like your loved ones and having those with you and like spending time with them. So yeah, that's what I've been
Yeah,
doing.
that's
Yeah.
very good because that's what I've been doing, like for my mental health and
Yeah.
just to, you can't help but like I go to the gym and they've got the news on the TV as you're working out. You can't, you see the headlines, and I just kind of keep it to that for now, so I can
Yeah.
focus on my goals and keeping my mental health in good check too.
Yeah.
Um, it's been we got a lot to go over this week in markets. We've got some rocket pool news, so why don't we get right to it?
Let's do it.
Markets. Let's start with that first. It's been pretty ugly.
Do
Let's
we
go
have to?
to. I want to start with this Ethereum chart though for
Yeah, that's better.
ETFs
Let's start now.
because what's we laughed like, oh, let's go over markets because it's been pretty horrible. But Whack, what's interesting, what popped out to me yesterday when I looked at this chart was if you looked at the last 7 days, you wouldn't know that there was a big correction in crypto, because look at the inflows here. If we go back to January 30th, we had 68 million, and then the following day 28 million, 84 million, 308 million, and then the last couple of days a little less, we had 18 million and about
We're
11,
still
but all
positive every day.
positive, all
Yeah.
positive. And you're like, oh. And then so looking at that doesn't reflect what happened in the markets. Actually, the price, we've had major correction. Right now Ethereum is at 27.28, and we were down. Correct me if I'm wrong, Wick, but did we wick down to like 2100 or 2200 at some point?
2150 on Binance. Yeah, 2150. It looks like we got to that 2150, 2200, got 21 to 2200 range on most centralized exchanges. Like it was just moving so fast that even the dexes couldn't keep up with the prices, like with what was happening. It was just an absolute colossal nightmare. I was watching it on Sunday night,
Hmm.
and the prices were just in free fall. Like ETH and ETH ecosystem was just in complete free fall, and it was really scary. Like we were like, "What is going on here?" It
We
was kind
usually,
of astonishing.
yeah. So
Yeah.
we usually, when we get these free fall events, which if you've been in crypto for a while, like you have, and to me to a lesser extent, these come every so often, and it's usually a situation where you get the price starts going down, and all of a sudden you start getting liquidations, and which cause a cascading effect, which then it just kind of spirals downward, 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 downward very fast, very quickly,
Yeah.
because of those liquidations. So generally, this happens, people say, well, we flushed out some leverage out of the market. Is that kind of what happened in this case?
Yeah,
No.
so yeah, yes and no. So there's two different areas of leverage right now for Ethereum, right? There's like the spot leverage, which is like retail leverage, like people like you and me using Binance or GMX or these different places to go long or short on Bitcoin, sorry, on ETH. Basically, like you can get leverage long, like you can go 5 times, 100 times even on some places. You can go short, like if you think the price is going to go down, you go short. If you think the price is going to go up, you go long. We can do that. Then there's another kind of like institutional level leverage, which is like through the CME, where you can buy futures, and you can buy futures long or futures short. And on the former, like a lot of that leverage has been flushed out. We had billions of dollars of liquidations, like cascading liquidations, like you were mentioning. However, on the institutional side, the short interest for ETH is still open, like to quite a huge extent. And I think the difference is that is very, very, very low leverage short, like it's the 1x short basically, and that's because it's being hedged against a 1x long on a staking token like a STETH, and this is really coming through protocols like Ethena. They're doing the carry trade and they're kind of keeping that basis spread for themselves, like with the open interest and the staking yield. So that's kind of the situation there. So I think the former, the retail leverage has mostly been flushed out. A lot of it got flushed out. Anyone who's basically anything more than a 3x levered long got flushed out. So that's quite conservative normally in a bull market, right? Like, if you have a 33% drawdown, that's when you get liquidated. So when the price is at like 4,000 and you're like, look, I don't think ETH is going to go back to like, 2,600 again or 2,700. I can take a 3x leverage. But then it goes down. Even if some people, like if they took out leverage right at the top, at 4,100 just a few weeks ago, and they took like, a 2x leverage, even they got dangerously close to being liquidated at like 2,100, like, because that would need a 50% drawdown to get liquidated. So even, in the bull market, people say like a 2x leverage is quite conservative. Like, there's a possibility that you can get levered. And that's what, one of the things that we've been talking on the show for a really long time is the number one rule of crypto is like you survive. And
don't blow yourself up.
People didn't survive this weekend. Like a lot of people on crypto Twitter were just like, that's my whole portfolio gone. Basically, like they weren't levered long, and the prices hurt them. Like and they lost everything. Like and I know a bunch of people who lost a fair chunk of change because of these price movements.
Yeah, it's dangerous to leverage, and these things can come. One day everything seems okay, and then the next day you wake up and everything's in free fall, and then you're really scared of where's this end.
Yeah, and another thing to notice as well is that like ETH actually got hit worse than a lot of the other assets, and that's because ETH's on-chain economy is so robust and so active, and ETH is like the fundamental unit of economy on the Ethereum ecosystem, right, across the whole thing. So once those leverage like started to come undone, and the cascade started to happen, it was the sell pressure on ETH that caused more and more sell pressure on ETH. So like coins like Solana or Bitcoin, like they don't have that same level of integration into DeFi that ETH does. So ETH actually, I think, took the brunt of it. Now there might be like other narrative aspects that people were buying up, Sol and BTC as they thought the prices were getting decent, and the interest in Ethereum is a little bit less at the moment. So maybe people weren't buying it up as readily. But once they did start buying it, then that candle went up, was actually like huge. So the bounce up, was very strong. But after that, we've kind of plateaued. Like I think the market needs to see another leg up, to get ETH back above 3,000, or ideally like the 3,400 range where we were a week ago, just to show that like we've moved past that whole wick down. Other tokens have done that. Bitcoin went back above 100,000. Solana went back, quite decently to where it was. ETH hasn't done that yet, so we really need to see that strength coming back into the ETH ecosystem.
Yeah, it's funny listening to TradFi. Well, let's reverse. Last week, the markets were hit because of the Chinese AI announcement, right? And that created some uncertainty. You had big players like NVIDIA drop, like double digits. And then late last week, the Trump administration declared that they're going to start a trade war with America's two largest trading partners, Mexico and Canada. And Wall Street, they reacted with their feet and took billions of market cap out of the market, because they know that tariffs don't really benefit anyone. Inflation goes up, spending goes down, the whole thing. And so those two things, I think, was what started. And then this started, I think, over the weekend, didn't it? And where the TradFi markets are closed, the crypto markets are open, and they were reacting in real time to what was happening. And this is one of those things where, again, we kind of front run the market sentiment, because a lot of that news was, I think the trade war was going to start February 1st, which was Saturday, right?
No, it was due to start on Tuesday, the 3rd.
Okay, it was.
Yeah, so
okay.
what happened is like during Trump's campaigning, he said, "I'm gonna bring tariffs back. Like we're gonna like the global balance of trade is out of whack. Like we need to bring tariffs back." And he's been campaigning on this, but a lot of people were under the assumption that he was just kind of like, setting the stage for negotiations and discussions, and he was kind of calling the bluff, and it wasn't actually going to happen. However, towards the end of last week, that's when word started to get out that, this is actually going to happen. He didn't sign the order until Saturday or Sunday, one of the weekend days. Like you said, the markets were closed, so crypto market was the one that really started to react. What's really funny though is because by the time we got to Monday morning, when the stock market was going to open, Mexico had already said we've reached an agreement and we are going to put the tariffs on the 30-day hold. And then by the time the afternoon came along, and most people had expected it by this point as well, is that Canada was also going to make some concessions. So what's really funny is the crypto market like absolutely nuked and then bounced back to some extent. Some more than others. And then the crypto market actually just went down to, sorry, the TradFi market only went down like 2% or something. So it's just like we took the whole brunt of that, everything, and then left in pieces, like people ruined. And the TradFi market's just like, yeah, whatever, like we're all good now. We got an agreement here. But what's really interesting is I think there's going to be something happening pretty much every week, for the next 4 years, pretty much. And Trump is a wild card, to put it gently, is very, very unpredictable in how the kind of statements he's going to make, the kind of positions he takes. And I think that people are trying to guess what he's going to do or try to rationalize what he's going to do, but the reality is that the only person who knows what Trump is going to do is Trump. I don't think even sometimes his advisors know what he's going to do or what he's going to say to some extent. So I think there's going to be uncertainty that gets baked in with the Trump presidency. And I was listening to something today, and the person was saying that if you read The Art of the Deal, which is his main book that he had ghostwritten for him and stuff, one of the
ghostwritten? No, he wrote it. What are you talking about? He wrote his own book.
His name's on the book. But anyway, in the Art of the Deal, he has this negotiation tactic called the Batman tactic or something. I don't remember exactly what it was, but something like the Batman and Joker tactic. And the idea is that basically you make yourself as unpredictable as possible to kind of keep the people that you're negotiating with on the back foot and in the defensive, and that puts you in a position of ascendancy. And it's very much approaches running a country like running a business. And for some people that sounds amazing, and for other people that sounds terrifying. So there's a lot of uncertainty right now about what's happening in the world and how
markets don't like uncertainty.
Markets don't tend to like uncertainty, yeah, and but then the uncertainty kind of becomes a certainty, if that makes sense. With Donald Trump, you're always certain that there will be uncertainty, so markets always price things in, like that meme, everything's priced in. But it's difficult. It's honestly difficult. Yeah.
Let's take a look at so Rocket Pool, and it was hit harder than, and so if we go back to the last screen, Ethereum was down 17% for the last week, a big hit.
Yeah.
Rocket Pool even worse, 29% on the week. We hit all-time lows. The ratio's down to 0.0022. So on top of all the macro stuff, as we talked before, LSTs, not the hot narrative at the moment, and it's reflected in the price here as well. There are things on the horizon. We've got, we're going to be talking about Saturn 1 coming up and, upgrades. So do you have any comments on RPL here, Rocket Pool? I know the sentiment is total shit at the moment. Are we at the capitulation time? I mean, what's your read? What's going on here?
If you're looking just at ETH, then I would say that it looks like that was a capitulation wake for ETH, and now we grind out of it, and hopefully, with some strength, so we can make up the BTC ratio and gain some dominance against the rest of the market for ETH. For RPL, the price is so low and the liquidity is so low that any selling that happens is having an outsized effect on the price of RPL, and it's just hitting the price down so much. So, for example, if you try to sell, 1,000 ETH, literally 1,000 ETH, right, onto the market, the slippage that you're going to get is minimal, less than 1/10 of a percentage point. If you try to sell 1,000 RPL, which is just $5,000, $6,000 worth of RPL, not $3 million for ETH, right? 1,000 ETH, 2,700,000, whatever it is. You get you get a 1% slippage for basically for 1,000 RPL. So the more RPL that sells into the market, the more it impacts the price of the token, because there's just no liquidity on DEXs, and even some centralized exchanges, liquidity is really thin. Sadly, we need to move up now before we get into those like higher liquidity areas, but it's really tough right now. Like, the price has been hit down really badly, and I feel like the sentiment is of capitulation, but the reality is that I've felt that this is capitulation for RPL so many times in the last 2 years. I mean, like, oh yeah, that must be capitulation. Yeah, that must be capitulation. Yeah, that must be capitulation. And what's happening now is that people have gotten burned so many times by buying those dips, thinking that this is the bottom, and then it's just gone further and further and further down. That I think even people who have been long-time believers and long-time buyers of RPL in those situations are hesitant to buy, and that's really scary, because you need those buyers there to be able to kind of buoy the market and set a bottom. But if no one's buying because they're scared that the price will go lower, and any sell that's happening is having such an outsized effect, it's putting RPL in a really, really like scary situation. I think it'll be okay. It's just we need ETH to lead the way. Like this,
right.
the RPL isn't leading the way out of this, right? Like for itself, we need ETH to drag us up, and then hopefully we get to a point where we can then move ourselves. People will be like,
Correct.
oh look, it's moved up 100% from the bottom. This means that it's most likely a bottom now. Like and like that's done. You can start seeing the path forward, and that's where things like Saturn and other things will start mattering. Right now, people are scared and people like don't know what to do.
Yeah, and it's about getting more money, new flows into crypto, right? We've had a little bit. You see in the ETF flows. The last analysis a few months back was that a lot of that ETF flow is just people like me, like, oh, I've got an IRA, and I like crypto, so I'm gonna buy the ETF too. And it takes time for institutional money and more retail to come in, but crypto in general just needs more liquidity to come, new fresh money. And as that comes in, you'll see like Ethereum start to appreciate. And then your alts start to are dragged, as you said, dragged along with it up.
Yeah.
And then on a thin liquidity traded token like RPL, all of a sudden, you can go from $6 to $12, quickly because there's
Very
not
quickly,
much on
yeah.
it. Right?
Yeah.
You get a couple big buys and boom, you're back in it. But that could go to, that $6 could become $3 pretty quick too.
Let me tell you exactly. Yeah. So let me tell you something really interesting. Like one of the community members, Hodja, goes to all these different places and finds liquidity for RPL on the market, right? Like he uses centralized exchanges, decentralized exchanges. He does this every week or two. He gathers all the data and has a look at what the liquidity looks like. And if I read his chart correctly, which I think I did, it would take a $1 million buy of RPL to eat through all the liquidity and get us back to like $60. Like something stupid. Like it was just some very either $1 million or $2 million, I think, of a buy that would literally take RPL up 10x up in price. Of course, that would get eaten up and like people would sell into it and like whatever. Like I don't think that would be sustainable. You need probably like 10 or maybe 100 times that to sustain that level of price. But to get a candle up from $6 to $60, you could do it very, very, very cheaply. Like if you were kind of playing those games. But that just tells you just how thin not only the sell side liquidity is, but also the buy side liquidity. Like you can move up very fast, and that you need that, right? Like you need that move up fast to kind of show the market that there's something here, there's the there. And without that, like it's really, really difficult to move. And thankfully we do have some things that can hopefully get attention to Rocket Pool in the next few weeks, but like it's gonna build slowly, I think. So yeah, it's tough.
Yes, it is. So stay tuned. If you really think we made predictions at the beginning of the year about crypto and prices, and so far that hasn't materialized, but over the long run,
Actually, before we move on, Pat, there was one thing I wanted to make, but it just slipped my mind a few minutes ago.
Sure.
Is the liquidity in the market. I think if you're looking at ETH and BTC, they're quite liquid tokens. Like you can sell in and out of them in quite a lot of size. However, the rest, like if you go down below like the top 10, for example, of crypto, there's not much money there. Like there's honestly not much liquid money. And one of the really, really clear examples we got of that was when Donald Trump launched his meme coin like a few weeks ago. Like we saw a whole lot of liquidity exit tokens and rush to Solana to buy the Donald Trump meme coin. And I think there was like, a few $1 billion, maybe $10 billion that moved over to Solana in that event. And everything got wrecked. Like
Everything
pretty
got
much the
wrecked.
whole market got sucked out of everything. And, it all went to there. So that $10 billion is basically buoying pretty much the whole of the crypto market. And that just tells you, like, for a $3 to $4 trillion asset, like, as a market, that's a very, very small amount of liquidity, like keeping up the tail end. So, that just tells you as well as just how little money you need to come into the market, like fresh money, to get things moving in the opposite direction, like, really bouncing up. So I think those are like some key things. Sadly, there's not fresh money coming to crypto really right now, like that much of it. Even the money that came in because of the Trump coin, there was some new money that did come in. Like you could see flows through like the MoonPay app or Moonwell app. I forgot the name. Like this some Solana app that lets people put money directly into DeFi. There was some dollars, but they're not doing anything. They're not like there. It was the analogy people used is like there were tourists visiting the Olympics instead of people going to live in the city that actually want to spend there. They just wanted to come and like see the Donald Trump meme coin, and almost all of them got burned because by the time they heard about it, the price was already kind of like peaked or close to peaking, and then it's been down only since then. So getting those people like the tourists to become like believers and like residents is really difficult. So.
Yeah, or unless you're one of the insiders who funded your
Oh
wallet
yeah.
4 hours before with $1 million
Oh yeah.
and then
Yeah.
bought it within the first minute it launched and then sold it for 300 million, the next day.
Yeah. That's not bad.
So
Yeah.
let's move on to news. We got a bunch of news here. So let's get
Lots of news.
to,
Yeah.
so Langers, he posted here on Discord that we were talking about DevNet 1, 2, 3, 4. That the goal was by January 31st, we would have DevNet 1. It looks like it's going to be deployed next week on Monday, which would be
Or
February
Sunday night.
or Sunday. Yeah, Sunday night.
Yeah.
So like February 9th, DevNet 1 of Saturn 1 will be released. And he goes on here to say, we're aiming to deploy the Saturn DevNet 1 features on Holski or Holski?
Haleshki.
Holeshki DevNet Monday next week, Australian time. Once we've deployed the contracts, we will announce a new development build of the Smartnode V2, which we'll get to in a second. If you'd like to participate in testing the Saturn features, you can download this build and play around. So this is good. This is one of the first milestones for Saturn, which is supposed to be, our goal is to launch it by July. And so we're almost on schedule. DevNet is going to be behind, I'm sure.
Yeah.
As always, but it's a good milestone. So some of the geeks in the community are going to really have fun playing around with this. It won't be me, but I'm really interested in to see what other people's feedback is on DevNet 1. Any thoughts?
Yeah, this is great. Like, so I was just saying a few minutes ago that, we'll start seeing things happening. And when we got the Saturn timeline, when Langers kind of published his quarterly report, I think that was in October at the time, and it had information in there of what they thought, Saturn 1 roadmap was going to look like. And I remember we talked on Weekly Orbit at the time that what's really great about this is that you'll get that little drip of information coming through, and like it can keep hype and attention on Rocket Pool because people will be talking about DevNet 1, then they'll talk about DevNet 2, then they'll talk about DevNet 3, and it's something for people to be talking about. Then what that would basically keep bringing attention to Rocket Pool. Sadly, since then, like Rocket Pool's RPL, has not done well. Rocket Pool, the protocols shrank a little bit more. So, attention on Rocket Pool is not good attention right now. Like, it's people complaining about Rocket Pool, people getting burned by the rETH discount, all of these things. So there's lots of negative attention on Rocket Pool right now. So it's nice to have something that'll be some positive attention. Like, I was really hoping that, we could start like a positive attention kind of like ladder where we're just building it more and more up. Sadly, since, I had that idea, we've gone negative, if that makes sense. So it's just kind of starting to dig ourselves out of a hole more than climbing upwards. But this is really great. Like you, I don't think I'm going to be playing around with this too much because it's kind of my wheelhouse too. But like, luckily, there are an incredible group of people in the Rocket Pool community who love to do like beta testing and like playing around with these kind of things, and they provide the team with reports and their feedback and they find bugs and all of this kind of stuff. So this is exactly what we want, and thankfully those people are still around and still eager to help, and I'm sure that they're going to get everything back on track. That 10 days that we've kind of missed out on by launching a week and a half later than we had originally hoped, there's a chance that we could catch up with that between the DevNet 1 and DevNet 2 releases. DevNet 2 could still come out on time, according to the original ideas. It doesn't have to be the case that, the following, everything later has gone later as well. But like you were saying, the reality is that, the timeline that you set yourself is almost definitely the case that it will be delayed a little bit. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I imagine the other thing is by letting the community play around with it, I imagine it's better to find some of the little bugs early in the process.
Always.
Than at the last minute. Right? Because you can, so it seems like it's a really smart way to do the development of this, and I'm looking forward to it. But go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to say this is the first time that Rocket Pool has done the DevNet model of development. In the past, it's always been everything is ready, and then they do they do the fork on Haleshki, and then the community plays around with it and tries to find bugs and then they do fixes and stuff. This is the first time we're actually getting real time development, hands-on stuff, which is actually really, really cool. It's closer to the Ethereum model now, which is what Ethereum happens on Ethereum, where they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 devnets that slowly adding more and more features, getting closer to the final version, and people are playing around with it and giving feedback, having meetings, getting all that information. So I think that this is a really, really good model because you're getting to those problems as soon as possible and iterating and building on them, which is exactly what you want. You definitely don't want problems coming up later. The earlier, the better.
Right. And usually you find most of the problems early, and as each iteration comes, DevNet 2, 3, you start to get less and less bugs, and it almost accelerates. That's the Ethereum model. In the first DevNet, they usually find a whole bunch and they have a community call. And then the second launch, they have less, and so on and so forth. So hopefully we'll follow that same pattern.
I hope so.
Other news was Langer's talked about, you mentioned the second version of the Smartnode V2. In response, he had a post in Discord here. He said, I don't believe there's a regulatory issue with adding the ARB to the Smartnode.
Exit ARB.
Exit ARB. That's regarding the rETH, which you can elaborate for us in a second. It's open source, and as long as you can disable it, I don't see an issue. With Smartnode V2, the aim is to get the Saturn DevNet 1 out the door, which we're about to do, and then we will make the jump to version 2. We need to deploy on Haleshki and test on mainnet before it goes full live. So ideally, we can move Smartnode V2 in the next 6 to 8 weeks max. The aim is DevNet 2 will be a Smartnode V2 only, and applying for a grant to implement the exit ARB into Smartnode is a great idea. We'd love to see it. So encouraging news coming out of the team regarding the Smartnode V2, and kind of give us a timeline here when we'd see that, because we've been talking about that for about 6 months. That would upgrade the Smartnode from a command line interface to something possibly that's a little more user-friendly, a different UX.
Not necessarily.
But it allows for that if someone were to apply for a grant. It gives that template to make it a more of a point and click type of interface rather than command line. But it does a bunch of other things too. So why don't you tell us what a V2 means for node operators? Yeah,
so like you said, V2 is something that we've been waiting on for quite a long time. Rocket Pool, the Smartnode that we have right now, you can keep using that pretty much, because you're using it to interact with the contracts. That's the main thing that Smartnode does, right? It lets you interact with the Rocket Pool contracts. Now, under the hood, the mechanisms of interacting with the contracts will kind of remain the same. So the main steps that you use now mostly will be the same commands pretty much. So, Rocket Pool, mini pool start, Rocket Pool, mini pool exit, close, all that kind of stuff, the claiming, and that stuff will kind of be the same. The architecture on which is built though is changing. So Joe, when he still worked with Rocket Pool, kind of, I think, wanted this to happen. There was a lot of tech debt in the current Smartnode that doesn't need to be there. So he was the one, I think, who kind of imagined it, restarting and building a new core. And NodeSet's hyperdrive is actually built on that open source core that he had kind of put up, that Rocket Pool's Smartnode V2 is going to be built on. One of the things that's interesting, like you said, is it will allow GUI, a graphical user interface, to be built on top of the existing architecture. That's because it'll be using like webhooks as some of the way like that it's used. I don't fully understand the technical stuff,
Yeah,
but it
yeah.
just means that like you can build a graphical user interface on top of it that can let you then interact with the smart node instead of the way it is right now, which is a command line interface or a terminal user interface, which is what Joe set up as well. Kind of gives you a little bit of a graphical kind of feel, but it's still very much like a terminal thing. With
Hmm.
the Smartnode V2, you'll just be able to build a website pretty much that has a very much like a web interface, like HTML interface that you can build on top of it. So that's really exciting. Now, like you said, this was supposed to come 6 months ago. However, there were some distractions along the way, like with Saturn Zero, and then the rewards tree that we needed to do, reward tree, I think version 13 that we're on now. So those kind of things that kind of delayed things a little bit. And then with the devnets as well, that I think that took some priority too. So it has been the situation, where it's been delayed many, many times. Even though I think the version is getting close to being version complete, or has been for a while. So it was just a matter of like getting those final things ready and then it could come out. So I think I really like this. Like, so on Monday we get DevNet 1, which
Yep.
is exciting. And then maybe by the end of the week or maybe the following week we will get, but most likely the following Monday we would get Smartnode V2 on Haleshki. So that gives things for people to play around with as well. And they'll probably test that for about a month or so, it looks like. And then there'll be, feature complete and everything, people will be able to check the code and stuff, make sure everything looks okay. And then in about 6 weeks, like Langus says, about 6 weeks from now, we would go on to DevNet 2, Smartnode 2, and then
Hmm.
we would get DevNet 2 out in about 8 weeks from now. So it looks like, things are hopefully kind of on track, which is really exciting. And I think that, we're starting to get those things like lined up so we can have positive news coming out every month, every 6 weeks, and hopefully that will start slowly driving some attention back to Rocket Pool in a positive way.
Agreed. Agreed. One thing that make Rocket Pool more integrated into the broader crypto world is this great idea that is being funded by the GMC, and it's a STAR program, and it has just launched.
Excellent.
XU, it posts in Discord here, hey community, we're excited to launch the STAR program, and there's links to the program guideline, how you can participate, how to apply, and how to contribute, and we want to hear from you. And so, just as an overview, the STAR essentially is it arms any community member who wants to reach out on their own to go to different protocols and encourage them to integrate rETH into their treasury or their DeFi. This kind of gives a program for them to work with and then eventually be compensated for as well, and which is nice. So this is a really nice post here, how to start. It's a centralized web page where you can decide how you want to go about it if you want to take the initiative on your own. And this has been successful. We had something similar to this, like Nexus Mutual was one of the successes where one of the community members reached out. They deposited a whole bunch of rETH and diversified their treasury.
14,000.
So this has been used in the past. This is why the GMC awarded the grant for it. So it's good to see. I'm hoping to see where integrations come in the next, this is probably over the next like 6 months, we'll see some success stories, I hope. What are your thoughts real quick?
Yeah, it's exciting. Like, you want these kind of initiatives to happen. Like, Rocket Pool is very, very, very much a community, focused, community centric DAO,
Well,
and
decentralized. Yeah, decentralized,
yeah,
right?
very much so. And it's our responsibility, right, to help Rocket Pool grow. And most of the time, like, you get paid for your work that you do, and that's awesome. Like,
Yeah.
we get paid from the GMC. I get paid for Rocket Fuel. We get paid together from the weekly orbit. Many other people, get paid from the GMC as well for their work that they do. So this all together is like really cool. The GMC puts money towards these things. So the GMC is putting a lot of money towards the STAR program, and there's money to be made, for your work along the way. So just identifying targets can get you paid. Reaching out, like, with those initial contacts and trying to get the lay of the land in those organizations, groups, protocols, whatever, that will get you paid. Getting things to a vote can get you paid, getting it to them to buy our ETH, mint our ETH. That is the key one that will get you paid quite nicely. So there's a nice amount of money to be made here, and I feel like there'll be certain community members who will really take the lead on this. So Signal here was actually hired by the GMC last week to be the project overseer. So it's kind of like a project management position. And they will work with the GMC to make sure that everything is running smoothly, and people are doing what they're supposed to be doing. So it's very much a little centralized hub of activity. So everyone's on the same page. They're all going to be using the same branding, the same messaging. Sleety was hired through Token Motion by the GMC as well, and his term is going to start next week. So he'll be making a lot of the graphics and design stuff for Star. That's one of his priorities in the beginning. Like, he's going to make infographics, pitch decks, like whatever we need. He's going to be designing a lot of that stuff. So there's some really, really cool stuff that's coming together and going into Star. Star, for those of you who don't know, was the #1 prize winner in the rETH incubator. So it was one of those ones that we really got behind really quickly. And I think that, we should get some really good successes from this.
I hope so too, because we need some, we've had the problem with our ETH discount. We've had the problem with an empty deposit pool. These are the type of initiatives that you get a few successes can help alleviate, some of those concerns pretty fast,
huge,
Someone
node
drops,
operator, yeah.
5,000 ETH in or 1,000 ETH in or 10,000 ETH. It can make a big difference pretty quickly.
Yeah, like 10,000 ETH would pretty much like clear half the queue that we have right now, like for node
Yeah.
operators. If they're buying on the secondary market, 10,000 ETH will get us back to peg pretty much right away. So these will make a huge change to Rocket Pool, definitely.
Definitely. Okay, on to our last news item. We got a new L2. It's called OpenZK, and they say here in their X post, thrilled to announce that the OpenZK network is collaborating with Rocket Pool and integrating our ETH into the OpenZK ecosystem. OpenZK network is the first L2 that combines ZK rollups with seamless ETH staking and restaking. This means lower fees, faster transaction speeds, and earn rewards on your bridged assets. Pretty cool. I went to their webpage to find out more information. Here it is. Does it kind of sounds similar? What is it? What's the other Blast, where you get native staking. So if you have ETH on Blast, you earn APR, earn yield on it. Is this a similar thing?
Yeah, it sounds like that. Like you, I haven't dug into it too much. I really should do. But I think it's the same idea. Basically, like any ETH that you bridge over will automatically be used to mint our ETH, and then that will you go and play on their thing while also earning yield behind the scenes on your deposits. So that is exciting. Like I was talking about this in Rocket Fuel, that even if we get moderate amounts of success for OpenZK, like I don't know much about this L2. I don't know what tech stack they're built upon or anything like that. I hope they get success, but it's so difficult to get success in the L2 space right now. It's horrendously cutthroat, and there's just so many projects out there that are trying to eke out market share that I don't know how successful it's going to be. But any success leads to them minting our ETH, which is really, really awesome. And hopefully we'll start seeing some, if they get some good incentives, get some good TVL built up, that could hopefully go towards some good rETH TVL being built up as well. The problem is, like, if they do airdrop campaign with like farming and stuff, once that's over, people try to bridge all their assets out, which could cause a nasty depeg. For so many people selling it, it'll be really difficult to absorb that on the market. But that's a problem for later. Like right now, hopefully it will drive some market adoption for our ETH.
Correct. Yep. I'm hoping so too. Last thing, just speaking of our ETH, if you're curious, Rocket Pool DeFi market rates. Our ETH is the last 30 days, the APR has been 2.76%, post-merge 3.5%. And then there's different strategies here. You can see the big one is flat money. We've talked about that before.
We got to be careful with flat money.
Very, very careful, because we're talking about leverage, right?
Yeah.
Because they're playing
but
that
that's
game.
for long. yeah, there's some nuances there that you need to be really careful about in terms of
Yep.
like, what you're doing. Please make sure you fully understand flat money before you go and use it.
Correct.
That number might sound really good, but you really need to understand what's happening behind the scenes. I'm not saying that, flat money is risky or anything like that as a protocol. It's just the mechanisms that they use is you're doing the, going long, and people are using their deposits to go long, so you're getting like the spreads there, but it's quite complicated. So please make sure like you watch the
Know
video
what
that
you're
I did with the
doing.
fat money guys, or go and like read their docs and stuff before you interact with that, because there is some nuance there, and if you don't understand it, you might be getting an outcome that you don't want. So yeah, be
Yeah.
careful. Yeah,
Pancake swap is on if you want to do more
amazing.
traditional, low
Yeah,
risk, active strategy. Right now it's around 119% if you do a rETH, if you do a LP with rETH and ETH. Pancake, it seems as long as I remember, has always been a top performer. If you want rETH and earn some yield on PancakeSwap has been your go-to.
yeah,
Also on here, it looks like Uniswap. They're doing a campaign on optimism. The Uniswap US, I can't look at my other screen here. USWUSDM and our ETH with bonuses, it's giving you about 190% with incentives. That's a little more risky. So do your own research. But as we keep telling you, if you want to earn some yield potentially on your rETH or ETH in your wallet instead of just sitting there, this is the page to go to.
yeah. And there's like the one that the number stands out every time pretty much. Like I think, in the last year, well, as long as I've been following this, like I think like 75% of the time that pancake swap pool is giving the best rewards, because it gets
Yep.
incentivized by the IMC, and it also gets incentivized by pancake swap. It's absolutely amazing. Like it's a
Yeah.
really, really well. Okay, remember again, do your own
Do your
research,
own
like
research.
before you interact with that. But it looks like it's a really, really solid pool, where you can earn fantastic yield. Like you're not going to get that yield staking, like being a node operator. Like what you do is like you get our ETH, half of your ETH, like you keep as ETH. The other half you swap into rETH, then go to PancakeSwap and deposit it there as LP, because it's a like asset as well. Like you aren't at risk of price fluctuations changing too much. So like if it's a USD or ETH pair, then as the price changes, you can like get impermanence loss and stuff. So that's
Right.
something to be careful of. But with the like pairs or almost like pairs, you don't have to worry about that as much.
Yeah.
So
And yeah,
the
but
rewards
most of the time
are
when you see
astonishing.
those like pairs, ETH, rETH, ETH, SE, they're going to go up and down. Like if one goes up 1% one day, the other one's going up just about the same. Whereas this is it's always been in the double digits in terms of yield from
Yeah.
PancakeSwap, and now it's in
And
the
that
three
right now, that
digits.
118% basically is 2% rewards per week, which is like nearly half a year's of staking rewards, and you're
Right.
getting that in a week. So like that's truly like amazing.
Okay. You got
Yeah.
to win this week.
Yeah. So my trading in the trenches is going really well. Like even though the market is horrible, I know that this is like my win pretty much every week right now. But I
Good.
hit 5x on my trading wallet. So I started pretty much on January 1st, January 31st, and I started with X amount of money in there, and now I have 5x. So that's actually going really well. Like and yeah, it's doing all right. But it goes up and down. Like sometimes it's a little bit lower and sometimes a little bit higher. But I hit that mark of 5x like a couple of days ago, so I was kind of
AI
proud of that.
tokens have been, they took a big hit, just like everybody
Huge
else
hit.
did.
Huge hit, yeah. Like they're even worse than RPL. Like, so they were kind of peaking in January, like in the beginning of January, the first couple of weeks of January, and then they got like that hit from the Trump coin. It just sucked out liquidity completely. Like some of the tokens that I bought, like, went down, like some of them went down 90% from their highs. Like they were hitting all-time highs. They went down 90%. So like, the AI tokens are very much in the bear market right now. And some of them are starting to show signs of life of like, recovering, but they've just been hit down like so many times these last few weeks. And the sentiment is quite negative. Like, people at the top weren't sure, like, is this a thing? Is this not a thing? Like what's going to happen with this? And then what slowly happened is like, more and more of those like negative voices have kind of come forward because the prices have gone down so much. But just like any market, like they the thing with the AI tokens is that there's so much attention on that area still. So any kind of positivity that I think comes in the wider crypto market will be amplified there in a way that it might not be in other sectors.
I heard an interesting take about AI in general, and everyone's excited about it, investors in particular. But then the counter to that is, does AI just become like another commodity? For example, if you if you think about flying, airlines, amazing. Think about it. It's amazing. I can get on a flight and then overnight I can be in Europe from North
Hmm.
America. I go to sleep, I wake up, I'm in London, or I'm in Dublin, I'm in Berlin. That's amazing. It's an amazing technology. You're flying at like zero point 0.8 per, zero point 0.8 or Mach zero point 0.8, almost the speed of
Yeah,
sound.
yeah,
And it's comfortable and it's extreme most of the time, extremely safe. And
yeah.
you're like, wow, if you 50 years ago, if you'd be like, oh man, this airline thing, it's amazing. And what an industry. People can get around, all the opportunities. It's been a really brutal market for airlines. Airlines, they've gone bankrupt. They barely make any money. Most of the money they make are on fees. And then the government just heavily subsidizes airports and runways and FAA and everything else. Without that giant subsidy, airlines wouldn't even exist. So just wonder if is AI going to be something like that? Where it's just so commonplace and it's integrated into everything that it just becomes commoditized and we just take it for granted. And
Probably.
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
But that's
probably.
that's the
Well,
counter.
yeah,
Yeah.
like there's like I think that the problem is like, and this is a discussion like a whole like
Oh, I know.
2 hour conversation. But the problem is like people have this idea that once it reaches this point, then that'll be it, right? Like like you just had this idea like if everyone's got a personal assistant in their phone, then that'll be that, right? Like that's the kind of
Mhm.
idea that we have is like once it reaches this point, it'll be kind of plateau. But like the idea that I think is closer to reality is that it will still continue to develop and it will still continue to get better and better even after it hits that point because the gains that you get from it getting better will get higher and higher. So there'll be always a race to make the AIs even better. And that's the scary stuff. That's when like the really scary things, like the realities kind of become possibilities. So yeah, I'm a tiny bit of an AI doomer.
Yeah.
I think that is going to lead like to the bad outcome potentially, because not enough people are working on trying to make it a good outcome, and the incentives aren't there to make it a good outcome. Like the incentives definitely are there to maximize money as much as possible, and that then leads to the bad outcome. So I'm scared about AI. I'll be honest, and that's coming from a person who's like watching
In the
the AI market
trenches.
every day in the trenches, like wanting to start an AI protocol potentially, like if the market conditions improve a little bit. So I'm probably part of the problem, but also someone who's kind of like terrified of it in some ways. Like it literally like has kept me up at night before thinking about this stuff. So yeah, that's kind of where I am.
Okay. Good win.
Yeah.
My win. My win is for those who don't know, I'm an IRS employee. I work at the IRS. I'm one of those guys. Levy lean, make them scream. this is our this is our motto. I've been there. So when I graduated college, I remember I was working two part-time jobs, and I was working um, at another place for free, 2 days a week because I wanted to show, hey, I really want to work here. I'll work for free, like an intern, just to get a job. So this went on for like 6 months, and I hadn't got an offer yet full time. And then this IRS job came up, and I just said, I need a job. I have to that can pay me consistently, and
Yeah.
so I took it, never thinking 25 years later I'd still be there. And as many of you know, the Trump administration is looking to, chop the federal workforce, and they've offered us to resign. That they claim they'll pay through September. Uh, Different legal analysis says that sounds pretty dubious based on the law. We'll have to see. But I'm also potentially eligible for early retirement. So my win for the week is I'm going to take the resignation offer, and I have a new job offer that I'm going to be starting at sometime in the near future, which will give me flexibility. It'll be a pay cut, but it's working with people that I know and I like, and it's a better work environment, I should say. I have to tell you that it's been the worst morale I've ever felt in my career at the IRS right now. The public shaming that some of the administrative officials, saying we're a national embarrassment, we're lazy, we're in low productive jobs. You should resign so you can go into the high productive private sector. I got to tell you, most of the days when I'm done with work, my brain hurts. We work hard, and I'm proud of the people I work with. So they've made public comments that they want to have federal employees feel trauma every day they wake up, and they want us to be as miserable as possible. And I don't really want to work in that type of environment. And so I think it's a good opportunity for me to. I didn't want to be a career life person. Like the only job I ever worked at was the IRS. I've always said that, and here's an exit that I can take and start a new life. Plus, it's going to give me some remote work possibilities. One of my goals is I'd like to live in Europe. Maybe go back and forth between the States and Europe, and this will allow me to potentially do that and accomplish that goal. So that's my win for the week. I've thought long and hard about this. It's been a little stressful. I've come to that conclusion. I have not sent the email yet. They just delayed it. There's a court order that delayed it till Monday, February 10th. And to be prudent, I've held off because every single day we get new emails with new information. It's a lot of confusion, a lot of uncertainty. And so I thought it'd be prudent just to hold off and see what today brings, because sometimes things change. Anyways, that's my win. So I'm a little nervous, Whack. I'm nervous.
Yeah.
It's a big change in my life.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
I think you're ready for it.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be really good for you, whatever comes next.
Yes, thank you. So that concludes this week's episode. Thanks for sticking with us. I know it's hard. I try not to follow prices every day, but if you do, it's hard, and it's hard for me even when I see it too.
Yeah.
But thanks for sticking with us. Thanks for being part of this community we call Rocket Pool. There's, I think, good things ahead. Stay upbeat. If you need someone to talk to, certainly reach out on those days when we get those bad days. So, anyways, Whack, we'll see you next week. Make sure you like and subscribe, and take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, bye.
Bye.